Hi everybody, I'm Addie. I'm the Kids Ministry Director at the Vine in Kenmore, and you're here for the Kids Weekly Devotional. I'm really glad you're here today. We're going to be talking today about the names of Jesus. We're in the middle of a series about the names of Jesus, kind of a continuation of our Christmas time. And today we are looking at Jesus, the bread of life. So let's read John 6:35 together. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. So if you have one of those Bibles that puts Jesus' words in red, this sentence is in red because Jesus is speaking in this case. Remember how we've been talking about how Jesus speaks and teaches in ways that his listeners can understand? This is one of those times. So he's doing this again because bread or flour or wheat have been around for thousands of years. Almost every culture in the entire world forever and ever has had some type of bread as food. There are a few things you may not know about bread that I thought were pretty fun. So bread is made usually from wheat, although you would find bread made from rice or potato flour or corn or any other type of grain, but for the longest time it was made with wheat. And I happened to find this interesting wreath that has some pretend wheat on it. So if you look at this wreath, there's sticks and pine cones, and then these yellow things are like feathers, I think, or artificial feathers, and then down at the bottom there's little wheat. So I'm going to actually take one off. This is our example of wheat, and you look at it really closely, you'll see that it's made of little buds and little things coming out of the buds. And so on a real wheat plant, what we eventually turn into flour is inside these buds. So the outside is called the chaff and the inside is called the berry or the wheat berry. So if this were real, I would take apart the wheat berry. And so if you gather enough wheat berries, you can grind them and they turn into a flour. So I have some artificial wheat berries here that are just little granules, and wheat berries are a little bit bigger than what I have here. So you might, if you wanted to make some homemade bread, you might get some real wheat, take out the wheat berries and leave the chaff. Then you would put the wheat berries in some type of grinder and then grind. So I have a mortar and pestle here. This is one of the earliest tools in all of humanity, and it's used for grinding things. So you just kind of push slowly and grinds whatever you're trying to grind into a powder. So now if I were actually using wheat berries and I used a lot of it, then I would have some flour. But I bought this flour at the store. And the end product is, as you probably know, a fine powder. And this flour has been bleached, so it's very white. But you can find flour that's brown or tan, or I don't know, it depends on what you use. So you get a bunch of flour. This is how you make bread. You get a bunch of flour, you add water and yeast, maybe some salt, and mix it all up into a dough. And then the last thing you need to add is heat. And the heat from an oven, or even if you didn't have an oven but it was really hot outside, you could cook little biscuits outside on rocks if you needed to. I'm sure that someone's done that at some point. The first mention of bread in history, apart from the Bible, was in the time of the cavemen. And it makes sense because bread requires very few ingredients: flour, yeast, water. You don't even need yeast, actually. Flour and water and heat. And it keeps pretty well. It doesn't go bad. So if you were maybe without a home or without refrigeration, as many civilizations have been for thousands of years, you could just take your bread or biscuits with you. So back to Jesus. So Jesus calls himself the bread of life. So what does that mean? Pause this video and talk with your mom or your dad or whoever you're watching this with, and maybe brainstorm what Jesus means by saying that he's the bread of life. Okay, so here's what I think, and I'd love to hear what you have to think. So bread is clearly important to our culture. In American culture, there's bread, and then in other cultures, there's, and also in American, there's tortillas, biscuits, crackers, pita bread, naan bread, all different types of bread. Bread is clearly important to our diet, and it's delicious, it's filling, and it's easy, and it's wholesome. So it's necessary. And even if you don't eat wheat, I actually don't eat wheat very much because it does sort of hurt my tummy. But if I eat bread, it's going to be maybe made with eggs or nuts or something that is better on my tummy. But bread is still important, the concept of that fluffy kind of keep it all together part of our diet. That's what Jesus is. He is like the bread. If you make a sandwich, first you put the bread, and then you put the peanut butter or the jelly, or you put the ham and the mustard and the lettuce, and you mix it all up. But what's holding it all together? What's holding that turkey and that mustard and that lettuce together? The bread. Jesus is like that bread. He is the thing that holds everything else together. Also, one other thing I thought of, remember how we've been talking about how Jesus is the Ancient of Days. He has lived so many days, we can't even count them. Jesus was here before us, and he'll be around long after. Jesus is simple, like the bread. He is not complicated. He stays the same, kind of like how bread, you don't really have to put it in the refrigerator. If you leave milk out, it'll go bad pretty quick, but if you leave bread out, it might just get a little dry, but you can still eat it, right? Bread recipes in general have stayed pretty much the same over all of history. There are a few different changes here and there, a few different methods, but still basically the same concept. And that's just like Jesus. Jesus has stayed the same from thousands and millions of years ago, and he'll be the same in thousands and millions of years from now. So Jesus' listeners in John 6 would have understood this concept, that bread really is the base of their diet. And sometimes that's what people would eat all day. So now that you know that Jesus is the bread of life from John 6, when you have a sandwich or a piece of toast with your breakfast, or even a pancake, because that's a type of bread, think about how Jesus is as necessary as that part of your meal. And maybe it'll help you understand Jesus more. Thank you, friends, for being here. I'm glad that you watched this video, and I hope to see you soon.